Good evening and welcome to KQED Newsroom. I'm Thuy Vu. A federal grand jury has indicted State Senator Leland Yee and 28 other defendants on a wide range of charges, including money laundering, firearms trafficking, and public corruption. If convicted, Yee could face 125 years in prison and more than $1 million in fines. Other suspects, including reputed gang leader Raymond "Shrimp Boy" Chow and former San Francisco School Board President Keith Jackson, were charged with murder for hire, drug trafficking, and other crimes. Meanwhile, concerns are being raised among Asian Americans about public perceptions of their community. Joining me now to discuss the latest developments are Leland Yee, KPIX reporter, and Josh Richman, Bay Area News Group political reporter. Josh, I know you read the indictment. What's new in it?
Well, there's one new charge for State Senator Leland Yee. They added a conspiracy charge to go with the 6 bribery charges that were already filed against him in the criminal complaint that prosecutors had put in last week. And then, of course, there's that final conspiracy to commit arms trafficking charge, which has gotten a lot of the press since then. Today's indictment also included charges against 3 more people than had been named in last week's complaint. Other players in this large alleged criminal organization headed by Raymond Chow.
What effect is this having on state politics? It's such a huge case.
Well, in the short term, it meant the cancellation of a big golf tournament.
By the Democrats?
By the Democrats, yes. State Senate President Darrell Steinberg and incoming State Senate President Kevin DeLeon sent out an announcement on Wednesday saying that they were canceling the Tem Cup, which is a big annual event that's held in La Jolla at the Torrey Pines Golf Course, wherein people pay tens of thousands of dollars to play golf with the most powerful Democrats in the legislature. And they probably very correctly thought that it would be very bad optics to be doing that right now, although my understanding is they will be keeping some of the money that had already been given to them in advance of this golf tournament.
What about calls for campaign finance reform? Because a lot of this had to do with allegations that Leland Yee, for example, just needed to raise so much money for his campaign for Secretary of State, which he has since dropped, and he had debt from the mayor's campaign for San Francisco.
Right. There are bills pending. There were bills pending before this. There are now other bills pending as well that would require additional disclosure of campaign funds as they're being raised and spent, that would limit the ways in which this money can be raised, perhaps, in terms of the gifts that can be accepted, the ways that lobbyists can throw events for lawmakers. But ultimately, there is nothing pending, nor is there anything on the horizon of anything pending that would limit the need that politicians have for this money. Ultimately, it is very expensive to conduct even a legislative race, much less a statewide election, which is what Leland Yee was now engaged in before he dropped out of the Secretary of State's race. It requires millions of dollars, and that means that these people have to be raising money every single day without fail in order to be competitive. Most people manage to do that without getting indicted, but occasionally some do.
Yeah, but there is a problem with most people. I mean, the perception out there right now, the public's, they're reacting very negatively to our elected officials. They're saying, what is going on in Sacramento? So do you think they do have to speed up something?
Oh, I certainly hope the public is incensed, and I think they'll continue to be incensed. In canceling the golf tournament, Senator Steinberg and DeLeon said that they'll be meeting with constituents this weekend instead, and trying to talk to them about this public perception issue and about the issues that have caused this poor public perception.
Well, I mean, they got to do something. They got to start legislating and making this impossible to happen again.
Right.
3 guys, 3 state elected officials.
The problem is there's no law that they could pass that would keep this from happening again, because this was already against the law. Right. Ultimately, it has to be. There will be lines that will be crossed. You can set up as much disclosure as possible to try to catch it as it happens, perhaps. But to try to take money out of politics at this point is trying to take water out of the ocean. It's just not going to happen.
But certainly there are people decrying, the fact that lawmakers can use funds from their campaigns to pay for their legal defense following criminal charges. So do you think anything will come out of that?
It's certainly something that they may choose to pursue. That's something that people have talked about for many, many years, dating back to when the former state Senate leader, Don Parada, was under FBI investigation for 5 years, although never charged with anything. He used to move money into and out of his legal fund between that and his candidate and ballot measure committees. And ultimately, although people complained about it, it can still happen at this point. This may be the straw that breaks the camel's back on that particular issue.
And I want to take a look at the Asian community as well and their reaction to this. You know, we've got Leland Yee, of course, arrested. We've got Raymond Shrimp Boy Chow in custody. And what is the reaction that you're getting in San Francisco's Chinatown? Are they relieved that Shrimp Boy is in custody, or is there still a fear out there?
Well, okay, let's start with Shrimp Boy. There are people who are relieved because he's a recognized bad guy in the community. He is someone who has extorted a lot of money from businesses and from gambling dens, and you know, he's a threat. He was part of that 1970s and 80s, gang warfare.
The triad and the
triads, the tongs, the Watchings, the Joe Boys, all that was very much a very fearful time. And he was the head of it. He admitted it to me, in an interview we did with him 8 years ago about how, he did all these things. But, but people, you try to get them to talk about it. Hey, aren't you glad he's in jail now? He's back in prison, probably convicted. He'll never come back out. Then they wouldn't want to talk publicly about it. Yes, I'm relieved, but I'm never going to tell you that on camera.
Why? Because
they said Raymond Chow has a long reach. And that is our fear. As far as everybody else, we've got Leland Yee. Today we had Ed Ju, who had to surrender for the second part of his term, the former supervisor.
The former San Francisco supervisor for perjury, and also he had served nearly 5 years in prison for federal charges of extortion and bribery.
Right, it's the same kind of thing. And the problem, the Asian community, when you hear these things, they're very proud. It's a cultural thing. You're very proud when you have leaders of your ethnicity holding public office, but when they have these crimes accused and they have to go to jail, it's embarrassing. It looks bad for the whole community. The whole thing now is there's this perception that all Asians must be like this, that they're bad, that all they think about is money, and they'll do anything to get it.
And is that because culturally there is in many Asian cultures a sense of saving face, and when one person does something shameful, it brings shame upon the entire community?
Yeah, because it's all about how people perceive us as an Asian community. Oh, I just knew it. They're just money grubbers. They cheat, they lie, they steal. And when you have well-known faces like this parading in the media day after day after day, it's embarrassing and it looks bad. And as being an Asian, it's all about saving face.
Mm-hmm. And more court appearances next week, Tuesday. And this week, Leland Yee switched lawyers. Now, why did he do that, and what do you know about the new attorney?
Well, he had been previously represented by Paul DeMeester, who appeared with him just this past Monday in court, and hinted outside of court that day at the possibility of an entrapment defense. 2 days later, he swapped out attorneys, and he's now with James Lassert, who is, among other things, a former San Francisco and federal prosecutor, and in that federal capacity had actually worked on an organized crime strike force, so he probably knows that of which he will now be required to speak.
All right, and Keith Jackson also now is represented by a very prominent San Francisco attorney, James Brosnahan, known for his flamboyance, and he's already, like you said, also hinting as well as at an entrapment defense. So we will keep everybody posted next Tuesday. Josh Richman and Linda Yee, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.